Okay, good morning, brothers. We're learning the month of Kislev, Leilui Nishmas Bas Yafega Bas Yisrael, Leilui Nishmas Frida Simon Bas Yitzchak, and by the Deutsches in appreciation of all of our Chayalim and the hope of the speedy return of our Chatufim. And the week is sponsored by Mordechai Wilk, Leilui Nishmas Imo, in memory of his mother, Miriam Liba Bas Tzvi. All right, so we're finishing today. We haven't done this in 2 weeks, I think, but we're finishing today the Midah of Hod on the Sfarim that you have. It's Daf Kuf Hey. Now, 2 things I want to say before we start looking inside. One is that he's a lot of mic drops. He's going to say a lot of he's going to say a lot of different concepts that will only be clearer later in the Sefer. But for us today, it's actually it's not that much longer because the back is just Ha'arot. So we're actually we're finishing Hod today, and then you have Yesod and Malchus. So don't get startled if some things aren't. You'll learn it. We will all learn it later on. Another thing is addressing the question like this: what do you guys think? Can you imagine right now if 100,000 conscious Yidden made Aliyah to Eretz Yisrael? You think it would change the whole game? No? Why yes? Why do you? First, I want to hear yes. Why yes? Why do you think it would change everything? Why would it be the whole game changer? Well, what would it do that it would change the game? Like, why would it change? I mean, should yes, but would it change the game?
First of all, it depends on who they are.
So let's say we're talking about conscious-minded Torah loving. That's what I'm saying. Conscious-minded Torah loving, and Yidden loving people.
Yeah,
It would change 100 grand. Yeah. Now, Benzi, spill. Like, don't be embarrassed to say why not.
I just think that the reality of politics here doesn't change.
So, do you think so?
The end game is the politics.
The end game is like whoever's standing in the front calling the shots has to change. Would 100,000 come and make a difference?
Energetically, they would.
Energetically, they would, but he's speaking about energy. Yeah. But what he's saying is that energy is beautiful, vital. But at the end of the day, if the energy doesn't go to change the top,
It's a 2-seat shift.
is that what it is?
Maybe 3. Yeah. It's not
Right. It's like a 2 to 3 seat shift where you're already, so to speak, in a right wing 64 over 58. And what's
And the courts.
well, that's a huge one, and that what we spoke about 100%, the judicial system. Nachon. So we're going to be addressing this question today through the learning, and I think it's very important. Because the question, as you see on the top of Kufay, Mi Shayach Lekam, which means who belongs here? Who's Shayach here? Am I Shayach here? Are you Shayach being here? Like, what is it? Who belongs here? Who belongs in Eretz Yisrael? And it's a sensitive topic, obviously, but this is like, we're saying if 100,000 Jews, conscious, open-minded, and most importantly, like open heart, like loving, came. And we're talking about a 2-seat shift. That's a very, that's pretty pessimistic, It's true, meaning he's saying you're a realist. But then the question is, well, who does belong here? Now this is the question. Who belongs here? En makom ba'aretz hakdosha legormim zarim she'en lehem kol zika likdushata. So there's no room in the Holy Land for foreign gormim, how do you say a gorem? A foreign entity, I guess, that don't have any zikah, that don't have any linkage to holiness. Let's explain what that means for a second. Do we have a zikah? Do we have a linkage to holiness?
Of course.
Are we accessing it? Hopefully, Bezrat Hashem. So, what does it mean that there's no room in the Holy Land for foreign entities that are not linking themselves at all to the holiness that's in this land? Now, this has become a hot topic on the Israeli podcasts. Podcasts are going wild all over the world, but in Israel, they finally hopped it. Now, this last year, podcasts got really big, and I've been having a lot of drives lately, all different places and weddings, and I've had some time in the car to listen to what the thinkers are saying. Fascinating stuff. they're asking themselves. A lot of these podcasts that are very nice and good and well-intended people, but that don't fall under this category of what we would say, I'm here because I'm linked by a holy chain. They're asking themselves, so what is it that's keeping me here and making me fight over it? And it's fascinating. It's really fascinating. If you have,
Yeah, Omer Cosby's got a podcast actually that's pretty good. And then I forget his other name. He's interviewed everybody. His office is somewhere on a main street in Tel Aviv or something. His studio is very interesting. He's interviewed people all the way on the right, all the way on the left.
So that's what I love about these. I don't know who this person is. Get me the name afterwards. But what's cool is that these podcasts, it's so true. They're bringing everyone in. I'll give you an example. You know, there's a Yid named Meir Ettinger. Have you heard of this name?
So I saw that one.
Okay,
That's
is that the one?
Yeah, that's the same.
Okay, so I listened. So that is
incredible.
unbelievable.
I
No,
listened to that
Meir Ettinger is named after his grandfather, Meir Kahana, and he's like the Rebbe of the of the young rebel Chevra, the holy righteous Chevra, Nora Gvaot. That same podcast had the most left-wing actress, Orna Banai, one of the real left wings. This is like the Meir and Eviatar's sister. Also, like fully, not just left, also just like all these questions of Jewish identity and everything. These guys, there's this awakening of people that on these podcasts they're trying to bring. They really, it's amazing. They're bringing everyone in. They're bringing totally right and totally left. And Herschel, that's just one. I'm telling you, there's a bunch of these.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of these podcasts, and the question that they're all kind of asking themselves is, well, if my whole thing here is not linked in holiness, I have to finally ask myself in 2024, what am I doing here? But the highest is when they're not asked that by someone else, when that question's coming from within, and it's fascinating. And it's very interesting, and we're just in the beginning of it.
Daniel Doshi.
Doshi, that guy.
Yeah.
Daniel Doshi.
So good.
This guy has had everyone.
Yeah.
Feiglin, Ettinger, Banai, Brick, all these cats, it's unbelievable. But when the question is asked by yourself, that's when you know it's for real. Not when someone poses the question to you. But when you come to the conclusion with, I need to ask myself that question. So what is it that I'm doing here? And that's what he's saying over here as well. It's like, well, you have to realize that being here, it's essential that the notion of my existence here is through this link of Kedusha. If not, you're going to come to the question of really, like, what am I doing here? And if you're here because you believe that the Jewish people deserve, statehood, nationality, v'chule, but it doesn't necessarily have to do with the world of Torah, you'll start asking even more and more questions, and then the Uganda question will, the Uganda equivalent will come up. Just rationally speaking, just like, wait a second, hold on a second. We've tried it here for 77 years. Over here, it seems like we're ticking everyone off by being here. If our thing is not linked by holiness, then why not set up shop in Northern Ontario? Plenty of grounds there. Or in, I don't know, Cyprus. Wherever. Or what's that latest hotspot that all the Yidden are building in north of Muncie? No.
Pomona.
Another one. No,
Chestnut Ridge? No.
There's one more place there. Huh? There's one more place up there. I don't know. Lama lo?
Lake Oswego,
Oregon. We're not going to St. Louis, Reb David. No? That's the question. So those of us that are under the assumption that, no, I know why I'm here, let's make sure, that's what this book is basically saying, let's make sure we know why we're here. Yeah.
His podcast, I just listened to one, Steve Scaly from...
The best. The best.
So he goes through this process. He says he used to work for the Shin Bet.
That's right.
He's a left-wing guy, and he ends up doing tshuva based on the fact that he saw how empty this whole left-wing ideology is based on even what we're doing here in this land. And he said he had a meeting with Yusef, who's the father of the Green Prince. One of
Oh,
the
the father of him.
The father, that was the father.
The terrorist, yeah.
The terrorist. And he goes, I'm in Oprah prison. And the guy says to him, Kaskeli, I see that, I saw you on TV. It looks like you got a kippah going on. And so he goes, yeah. He goes, good for you. He goes, now you're Habibi. Now you're closer to me.
Wow.
So he goes, what do you mean? What do you mean I'm closer to you? So he goes, because you're at least a believer. At least you believe in something.
Wow.
You stand for something.
Wow.
So Kaskeli says, like he stops, puts his notebook, then gets back to sit down with him in the interview. He goes, wait a second. Why do you? I thought you loved the leftists. They always want to give you everything what you want. So he goes, those guys, and he used the term, this is how he did, useful idiots. The leftists.
That's
how
what
he refers to
the
useful.
terrorist said.
Yeah, the terrorist said, those the leftists. And he says to him, you will get last, but at least you stand for something.
Wow.
You stand for something, and he
Wow.
basically goes on to describe that, like, he knows, you have to hear it, and he knows the Arab mindset so well,
Right.
and how they have, so to speak, pachad for these hilltop guys, the people that stand for, as you described, the most natural Jewish expression.
Healthiest, yeah, yeah.
Excuse me. And that really is pachad for them.
Wow, that's fascinating.
Yeah.
That's exactly. This is exact. But isn't it amazing that he needed to get that from him?
That's right.
That's unbelievable.
From him.
That's unbelievable. It's unbelievable.
It's consistent throughout the whole hour and a half. He keeps talking about this point. He says, and I know all the commanders of the Shin Bet. I know the mindset. I know the ideology. I was there. I was with it. And they, because of the fact they have nothing to stand
Right.
on, they basically hate themselves, which is me and you. And they come after us first before they come after the enemy. And he explains that.
It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. He's amazing. Yeah, he lives right here in Bahrain. Yeah.
I didn't know
Come with me to the Mayan, you get to see.
Yeah, no, we're buddies. We've done some stuff together. He's special. He's a real Brestover. Like his Indian with Rabbi Nachman is pnimi. It's really inside. It's for real. He doesn't do anything in English, right? Just Hebrew, right?
This is English.
Oh, this was a podcast in English.
Caroline Glick.
Caroline Glick.
Oh, it's on Caroline. How's his English?
Excellent.
Really?
Excellent.
Share it on the Shtem or on the Sichos Chaverim. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Oh, he's unbelievable. I know Nachum Siegel he was for a while nudging me to get him to go on the show. I couldn't help him out, and then after months he scored Yechezkeli on Jam in the AM too. Yeah, Tzvi's amazing. Tzvi's amazing. Amazing. Wow. Thank you for sharing. Okay, again, let's start from the beginning. אין מקום בארץ הקדושה לגורמים זרים שאין להם כל זיקה לקדושתה. בתנאים מסוימים, under certain conditions, ישנה מציאות של גויים המתגוררים בארץ מתוך קבלת הריבונות היהודית עליה. You do have a certain reality of non-Jewish people living in the land, but from a place of acceptance of Jewish sovereignty over them. ומקבלים על עצמם להיות מחסידי אומות העולם, and they could say, we're what's called righteous Gentiles, right? That they take upon themselves this. ולקיים את שבע מצוות בני נוח, and they keep the 7 Noahide laws. And these types of non-Jews are called gerim toshavim, and this comes up a lot in halachic debates regarding the status of non-Jews in the land. Now, where does this come? Huh?
It's like the whole Har Bracha crew.
So they're
The walk, right?
that's the show. It's not clear because of there's an Indian there. But where does the concept of ger toshav come from in the Torah? We had it just recently. Avram Avinu, ger v'toshav anochi imachem. My status is I'm a ger, meaning I'm an outsider, but I'm a toshav, but I'm a dweller, but I'm a citizen. There's no Indian in a Torah state to be like only Jewish people can live in the Holy Land. That's not true. It's just that we haven't had the best of history with masses of non-Jewish people here, because it doesn't really end up being a thing that they stand proudly during the national anthem and they sing with a tear in their eye, Od lo avda tikvateinu, ha-tikva bat shnot alpayim. Rav Kahana used to say, why would you expect an Arab to get up and stand in the national anthem and sing proudly about the 2,000-year hope of coming back home to be an Am Chofshi in Eretz Yisrael, Yerushalayim? What's this inyan of forcing this citizen? What do you think is going to happen? What do you think is going to happen? Listen, we're in this world. What we're experiencing in our time now is in insanity. Today, the whole picture could change here. Just like it changed completely yesterday, it could also completely change today. Mm-hmm. The question is, what are you offering? What are you saying? Let's say the Jewish people said, we're calling the shots. We have green lights from everyone, but we stopped caring about getting free green lights from everyone. We're doing this now. What are you offering? So there has to be the notion, there are plenty of righteous Gentiles in the world that simply are scared to speak up from all different nations and countries because they will be eliminated. They'll be eliminated immediately. The question is, what do you have to offer today to the voice that now is seeing, maybe, I don't know, even though these don't get too excited about these Meshuggahs in Syria. These guys are crazy.
Former head of Al-Qaeda.
These guys are do not let them wipe out each other. These guys are not our chevra.
I don't know if it's true, but I saw that they announced today, some group there announced that they're coming for Jerusalem.
They're coming for Jerusalem. I saw that also. Don't get excited. Let Hashem continue writing the script, and hopefully you'll play the best role what he needs
He's
you.
in it, and something's going on.
Only.
You're in
Clearly.
it too.
Yeah, but we didn't write it. That you have to remember that this script, just like no artist could create the ocean, the beauty of the ocean, and how that works and all, right? With that visual, there's no. It is such a godly script. We need to just buckle up and be like, Hashem, I want to really represent your word in the most real way, and hold on tight and be strong. Because anything can change right now. And if anything can change, do you know what it means to offer the world? Do you know what it means to talk to the non-Jewish people that are here in a very, very clear manner and explaining to them what a ger toshav means, and be very clear that if you do not fall into that category, you cannot be here. Now we had a remnant. We had a little bit of a hope because of of the lands that we took back yesterday, up in Syria, right? And it's actually extended even last night a bit more, which we're calling it. I wish it wasn't like this, where we were calling it just a buffer zone and a strategic zone, because the angle that you have now from the other side of the Hermon is the 360 angle of that whole area. Syria, Jordan, and Lebanon, where it changes the game strategically. It would be nice if we actually just spoke not like that. It was more,
That side of the mountain, they say, is much better for skiing.
Oh, for sure. I saw.
Oh, you saw?
I didn't see it, but I could see.
You're prepping.
No, they took they just found out last night. Abby's.
This is not just
She's there?
She's probably heading out the next day.
Yeah.
This is our family going into this.
It's also above all the lakes of Lebanon.
This isn't just a
Can I show
discussion.
you a picture from
This
El
is
Yashiv
happening
yesterday?
now. Hello.
Cool.
My son is there now. We're part of this.
Yeah.
It's our story. This is not all the stuff we're speaking about right now. It's not theoretically. That's what I was telling the Chav in the call yesterday. Saying, Chav, you realize we're speaking all the time about shifts and changes and opportunities and what will be when there's a shift. This is the Metziut right now. This is the reality. This is it. This is what's happening right now. Also, yesterday morning in the Mashiach class for the women, it was like, wow. We're always speaking about the Yemot HaMashiach and everything. We are in it. It is unreal. We're in it. This is why we're learning this stuff, to realize, well, if the opportunity was granted to you to offer a different metzias, different reality, what would you offer? What would you offer? What are you offering? What's the alternative? What are you displaying? And that's why we have to be clear as to what we would like to see happen. Kol tzura acheret shel hityashvut zara asura. Let's finally come to the realization. Any other type of settlement of people that do not accept upon themselves Jewish sovereignty in Eretz Yisrael, it's asur. It's forbidden. I don't know why that has to even be like a radical statement. It's almost like saying, listen, in your house, if there's a kid, if your child has a friend, that when they bring them home from school, they keep on taking scissors and cutting their legs when they come into the house, I know it's going to sound really radical, but they can't come over. מובן מאליו שאם קיימים גורמים שליליים כאלו בארץ, it's obvious, it should be obvious, that if these negative forces are in the land, אין הם זכאים לאותה תמיכה ורווחה הניתנת על ידי המדינה ליהודים ולגורמים החיובים החיים בה. Then it shouldn't be that those that cause terror and don't accept upon themselves Jewish sovereignty should not be ones that are beneficiaries of the system. Now, that is still not the case, because you have plenty of people that are citizens, right? Israeli Arabs, which is a terminology that can only be real if they're makabel on themselves, Sheva Mitzvot Bnei Noach, right? That are basically receiving governmental funding in many different areas in their lives, while there is complete chilul Shem Shamayim and chilul HaMedina. That can't be. That can't work. It just doesn't work like that. Hashlav hazeh shel hatikun. Now this shlav of the tikkun, this stage of the tikkun, lamrot ofio hachitzoni hame'ayem, although on the outside it looks like it's very threatening, he says over here, talui behitatzmut hachesed. It's actually dependent on how much you're pressing the chesed button on. This is very important to keep on reminding ourselves. What the world calls maybe gvura in its pnimius is really chesed. In its pnimius, it's really chesed. The example I gave last year on Parshas, I think it's Vayera. Yeah, is that I said over a Torah in shul that I got so many compliments from both sides, from opposing sides, because each side heard what they heard, but I listened to what it was. The whole thing was, do we really have the understanding of what it means to hear the voice of Yishmael crying? Do you remember this one? Mm-hmm. So I was talking about how we must hear the voice of Yishmael crying, right? Now, what does that mean? So someone thought, I can't believe that even now, when such a state of war, you have such compassion for the voice of Yishmael crying.
You do have compassion, but you meant it to take him
out. I have healthy compassion.
Yes.
And to his mom, get me out of here.
Get me out of here is the voice of Yishmael crying. The voice of Yishmael crying in Eretz Yisrael is begging his parents, this is not our gig. This is not where we belong. Can you hear my cry? That's real compassion, and that's real chesed. Hashlav hazeh shel hatikun, again, even though outside it seems pretty threatening, it's all dependent on how much the chesed is accelerated. Bagisha chasidit, with the chasidish taich, shel tchias hachoshech, by how do you remove darkness? And we're showing it's Chanukah, al yedei hosafat or, by adding light. That's how you remove darkness. Chassidus, how do we dispel the darkness? By adding on more and more light. Like they say in Lubavitch all the time on Chanukah, these public Chanukah, it was like, one candle can dispel like loads of darkness. If there's a dark room and you put one candle in the corner of a room, the room isn't dark anymore. So the midah of chesed, the accelerated, is what we're hopefully working for. Now, what does that mean? That you put on more chesed, and this is the point. Perush hadavar hu, this means, shekechol sheyavo yoter Yehudim el haaretz. The more Jews that come back home, v'titchazek hamuda'ut, and the muda'ut, the consciousness, the consciousness of what it means to be here. תתחזק המודעות להיבדל בין יהודי לאינו יהודי בכלל. To understand what it means to be a righteous Jew here and what it means to be a righteous Gentile here. And it's clear to me what that means. And also, בקשר לירושת הארץ, to the inheritance of the land, ולחיבור אליה בפרט, כך תרבה מאליה העזיבה הטבעית של הגורמים הזרים. So the חבר'ה that realize they're not going to get their way being the other way will begin to naturally leave. You know what would happen if we actually allowed all the Gazans that want to leave? Do you know what would happen? What do you think would happen? If we actually allowed this, right? If we actually somehow figured out a way to allow this to happen and actually listen to their call, do you know how many of them have left already and how many of them want to leave? Rove. Majority. Feiglin speaks about this all the time. It's just that what? That in the eyes of the world, you're speaking about it falls under the word
the A word.
with
Part-time.
the A word or genocide.
Do they want to leave from Yehuda and Shimron?
Huh?
Do they want to leave from here too?
Once we start acting there full on like we finally did after October 7th in Gaza, like this. Because in their teva, they have absolutely nothing to do with this place. So when a person's forced into their nature, this is what starts to happen over here, right? And if they actually care to listen to their own children crying, they would hear, Abba, Ima, get me out of here. Get us out of here. So he says that the more that you bring light into here, which means more Jewish people coming home, the more that becomes part of what the world of what this experience here looks like. The more that those that are naturally inclined to be in touch with their nature will what they're calling now Hagira Miratzon, which means Hagira, voluntary. What's the right word? Migration, right? I think that's what the right word. Voluntary migration, right? It's like the most natural thing in the world. He says, "Kach terbe me'eleh ha'aziva ha'tivit shel hagim hazarim." Benosaf, yesh le'agbir et ha'aziva hazo. You want to make sure that this departure takes pace faster. Al yedei tzimtzum mekorot hachnasatam shel gormim eleh, which means you stop. What do you stop doing? You stop hiring them. You stop giving them legitimate reasons to say it's better for me to be here. And unfortunately, we're not there yet. Their lives here are infinitely better than any other place. That is our fault. It's our fault. And that's part of the tikkun that needs to shift. It cannot be that what they're able to get here and the lifestyles they're able to have here is so much better than anywhere else. It cannot be. It just doesn't make any sense. Okay, now we're going to end with this. Shalosh ha'igrot, 3 letters. Rav Ginsburg now takes us to the time that the Yidden first came into Eretz Yisrael, which was in the time of Yeshua. Let's look at Yeshua. How did he deal with this? This sefer is for Yeshua as well. It's not for Yeshua. It's based on Yeshua. How did Yeshua do this? Sefer Yeshua is fascinating. Sefer Yeshua is one that a Yid has to keep on going back to all the time, especially today. Yeshua ben Nun, manhig Am Yisrael b'knisto rishona la'aretz. He was the first leader of Am Yisrael coming into the land. Shalach shalosh igrot l'amami Knan sheyashvu ba. He sent them 3 letters to the people of Canaan that were dwelling here. Barishona katav. First he writes, harotze lifnot yifne. We'll explain each of them. Bashniya katav, harotze lehashlim yashlim. Ubashlishi katav, harotze la'asot milchama yaseh. Let's see what these 3 things mean. Ad ko dibarnu al mediniyut hamurkevet mishtei ha'igros harishonot. Up until now, we've spoken about policy that's basically compromise. It's created from the first 2 letters, right? Harotze lefanot yifne means aziva miratzon, meaning someone that wants to leave. Gesundheit. Or kabbalah vehashlama ribonut Israelit. Next page, b'im chukei Torah. Or you want to make shalom with the way things are set up here, Yiddish state, like a Yiddish country. En baya harotze lehashlim yashlim. You want to make peace with the situation that's offered to you here? Make peace with it. Harotze lehashlim yashlim. The third thing that Yeshua says to them, Harotze milchama, yaseh. The third option, milchama nechshevet lishlav benaim ben midat hahod lemidat hayesod. This third level of milchama is like a middle ground between this midah of hod and yesod, exactly where we're at right now. Now here's what I told you in the beginning of Shir, that he's going to start to say a lot of concepts, which he even says here, they will be explained later on, but he's just going to hint them out over here. Now, frankly, the topic of Mashiach ben Yosef and Mashiach ben David needs its own Shir. It needs its own Sefer. It's its own world. How many of you are familiar with the concepts, with the pnimius of the concepts of Mashiach ben Yosef and Mashiach ben David? Did anyone ever learn this thoroughly? Mashiach ben Yosef, Mashiach ben David. Are you? Not yet? Very, 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 very important. We're going to learn it. We're going to learn it Bezrat Hashem soon. Yeah.
I was learning about a concept of that if it wasn't for a sin, the original sin, then Rachel and Leah would have been one person. They each had their
Inyanim,
is there,
yeah.
is there a concept? Is that a shared concept of the Mashiachs?
Well,
like if there's a tikkun that brings the Mashiachs together.
Oh, why? Because Mashiach ben Yosef comes from Rachel, Mashiach ben David comes from Leah.
Yeah.
So what's the question?
The question is if it's a pagam that they're separated.
Oh, I never heard that. Interesting.
A little bit is yichud between them both.
Right, but is he saying is it a begam and it's in Yesod that it's even came down to the world in two different lines? That's pretty far out. I don't know. Tzarich. Okay, Mashiach ben Yosef, third line. Av tipus shel midas hayesod. He is the archetype of the midah of Yesod, which we're going to be getting to in a second. Yosef is Yesod, right? Yosef HaTzadik is the midah of Yesod. הוא זה שינצח במלחמות האחרונות נגד כל אויבי ישראל מבית ומחוץ. He's the one, Mashiach ben Yosef, that's going to fight all the wars from within and the wars outside as well. Rachel Imenu, I love when this happens. It happened yesterday in a different shir, twice, and now it's happening again now, where you're learning a random sefer. There's nothing to do about the parsha, and it's right here in our face. Rachel Imenu kara li Yosef be'et leidato Hashem bakashata. So what's the reason Yosef's called Yosef? Because it says Yosef Hashem li ben acher. God will add on to me another son. It's a pretty weird explanation of a name because it basically means
I want the next
more.
one.
I want the next one. You know,
This one's
imagine feeling like that. Like your name is next. Basically, your name is next.
who's on deck?
Who's on? That's basically what his name is. Who's on deck? You know, I was at a yard site last week for Erli, for Benjamin Erli from Beit Shemesh, Hashem Yikom Damo, and his Rav. I think I shared this with you guys on Friday because it was Thursday night. His Rav, the Rosh Yeshiva of the Hesder in Tzfat, Rav Eyal Yakobovich. Wow, he mamish blew me away. Amazing. He's the one that leads a lot of the hallows with Rav Shmuel Eliyahu with the guitar in Hebron and other places. He's really, really fascinating. So he spoke a few times during the night, and one of the shmuzes that he gave was that if you really want to be puzzled, just learn the reason behind the namings of the Shvatim. It seems like the most nebechdika way to choose names. Ruvain, why is Ruvain called Ruvain? Ki ra'ah Hashem be'oni, because Hashem saw how Nebuchadnezzar was. Shimon,
he heard that was hated.
He heard that how bad life was. Levi, it even gets better. What's Levi? To me, that's the craziest one. Hapam yilaveh elai ishi. Now, my husband's going to have to be with me. Why? Because the Rishonim say there, because a mother can only carry 2 kids on her own, but if there's a third, then the father means he has to also. It's like, these are the names of the Shvatim, and then it keeps on going on. It's Vulman, all the names are very, very, so that's what we were saying. That's by Leah and the Shvachas. But then when Rachel comes, who's on deck is the name of the first one. Yosef Hashem li ben Acher. So obviously everything's done here with Ruach HaKodesh, how the names are chosen. So he says, Rachel imenu kara li Yosef be'et lidato al shem bakashata, Yosef Hashem li ben acher. Al panav ne'enta bakasha zo behuladat Binyamin b'na hasheni. So it seems that, what is Rav Ginsburg saying? It seems that the reason why Yosef is called Yosef worked. Why? Because Binyamin was born, meaning who's on deck? She got Binyamin. And then the Rav Eyal Yakubovich then said, but then by Binyamin it changes. It's not necessarily the Nebuch, it's like an in-between, between a Nebuch feeling of the name and a Kovadik name. Ach baroved apnimi, but on the deeper realm, יותר מתפרשת בקשת רחל יוסף השם לעניין משיח ben Yosef. Really, he says over here, and he's going to explain to us that when she says Yosef Hashem li ben Acher, that's a reference to Mashiach ben Yosef. והיא מתחננת להתגלותו של ben Acher. And she's davening when Mashiach ben Yosef comes into the world for a ben Acher, which is what? Mashiach ben David. That's amazing. Lebo shel Mashiach ben David. שביקש חיים למשיח ben Yosef. כפי שיתבהר בהמשך, which will be shown to us later, that they're both davening for each other to exist. Mashiach ben Yosef is davening for Mashiach ben David. Mashiach ben David is davening for Mashiach ben Yosef. Again, this is just concepts, which he says we will explain later on. But just, that's fascinating. Again, Rochel names him Yosef. One can say, well, Yosef, who's on deck? Binyamin, she got it. The other can say, she was so tuned in to the nitzchius of Am Yisrael, to the eternity of Am Yisrael. So when Mashiach ben Yosef comes into the world, she says, well, right away, this is not enough. I also need Mashiach ben David. The only question I have as of now is that he was already born. Yehuda was already born. So based on this, she wasn't tuned in maybe to Leah's son, Yehuda. There's a lot, listen, the Ishbitz goes wild here. Ishbitzer is all over this. All over this.
Isn't the Avodah of Mashiach ben Yosef more of a, he's coming to fight, he's coming to always, what Yosef represented, so in that time, maybe that she was focused on that was the Avodah of Israel, to like, keep us, right? So
Right.
Yosef Avodah is going to be, they weren't tapped into Yehuda and Israel, yeah.
Apparently, something wasn't tapped into over here. Nachon.
But then Binyamin and Yehuda end up connecting.
So Binyamin and Yehuda connect very, very strong, and maybe that is one of the ways we'll see that was the answer of who's on deck to Mashlim, the Mashiach. Binyamin, who really brings Yehuda to the front. And the chelik of the Kodesh Kodashim is in the chelik. Do you know this?
Binyamin.
Right, in Chalukat HaShvatim, right? Yerushalayim is in the chelik of Yehuda, but the Kodesh Kodashim is in the tribe of Binyamin. So maybe that's the Hashlama. It could be.
Wow.
It could be. So that's also a fascinating question. When you read the pasuk there, right? All the others, it's clear who named. Here, it's like Hashem and Yaakov.
Hashem
Okay.
named Yehuda also, right? But
No, she said Pam Odeus Hashem. I mean, she gave the reason for it. She said Pam Odeus Hashem. Rak lachar, bottom paragraph, we'll end with this. Rak lachar havosat oivenu be milu am. Only when all of these enemies around us are done, we're done with them. Nuchal yitbarech b'shalom amiti v'nitzchi. We can be blessed with real and eternal peace. It was very hard for me to hear a statement last week from Rav Ovadia Yosef's daughter. She's a very big name here in Eretz Yisrael. Her name is Adina Bar Shalom. And she's made a statement that was very hard for me to, I'm still trying to digest it, because she's the daughter of Tzaddik Yisod Olam, Maran Ovadia, Rav Ovadia. She said that we have to come to the realization she'al charbeinu nichye lanetzach, that we're going to live on our sword forever. And once we realize that, we'll be able to operate in a much healthier manner. Once we accept that that's how it's going to be. And I just don't, it's hard, it's a very hard thing to hear.
Because Kiyomi says that. He says you need to accept you're going to be living on your sword forever. And you listen to it. He goes, you just need to know this is there is no, maybe if we go about it this way or that way. This
Right.
you need to be prepared to
Right.
fight. When you're prepared to fight, they'll say, "Whoa, I don't like this. I'm not."
Where's-
But there's no.
So I would.
other way.
So if that was the kavana, like what he's saying,
We're
that
just-
huh?
They say with Mashiach, then we're gonna take our swords and turn them back into plowshares.
Nachon.
It's like furash. We
But-
have to
but-
fight up until that point.
Before that.
But wait a second.
When before that?
Before we get
Right,
to
so
that
it's-
shlav,
Up until Mashiach, we have to keep.
It's not a
fighting.
steer.
Right.
He's saying
but the way there's two different ways of saying that statement. One is al charbecha tichyeh, and therefore a, and then there's Yechezkel's way of saying al charbecha tichyeh. If you chop that, if you understand that that is the way that things work here, and then you lechatchila go out, then it's B. Then it's two different scenarios. It's two different scenarios. Listen, the third option says, no, it doesn't necessarily have to be like that. And then you get Oslo. Right? Then you get Oslo. So the first two ways of saying you're going to live on your sword and therefore accept that there's going to be blood. And the other one is, if the reality is that you have to live on your sword, show up like someone that understands what the reality is here. And that's what you're saying. And then the enemy sees that, it's a different ballgame. Sparta? Yeah. So these are things that are happening. You know, this is here. This is happening here, and we're trying to go, you know. This is what we're trying to figure out over here. How does it work like this? So he says over here, only after all of our enemies are completely done with, we could be blessed with real and everlasting peace. Et milchama ve'et shalom, like it says in Kohelet, but kodem milchama ve'rak az shalom. That's the order. That's the order. Hashalom ha'amiti haba la'achar ha'milchamot she'ilachem ha'mashiach, the real peace that will come after the wars that Mashiach will fight, hu matzav ha'toda'a ha'machshir et ha'karka letafkido ha'amiti shel ha'yesod. This then prepares the ground for the real job of Yesod to come into fruition. What is Yesod, the midah of Yesod, which we'll be studying next week? What does that bring into the picture? Ichud, this is amazing, Ichud HaTorah veHamada, which is a big tikkun for many of us that grew up in that world that didn't come from, right? The concept, you know, Torah Umada is? Right, so, but
secular and religious.
meaning it's all well and
Science.
I don't want to whatever. I'm even meaning of it. It's ichud. He's saying the real ichud of Torah Umada. It'll finally stem and not force itself on each other or force the other to compromise. There'll be a complete unification of the two.
That's because they're
100%. 100%. Because not chitzoni.
Not power, not money, not
Pnimi.
status, not, you know, I'm a big this, I'm a big that. It's panemius.
With bittul. With bittul. With bittul. Kfi sheitba'er b'perek haba.
I read that already.
Which will be explained to us, Bezrat Hashem, next week. And as you see, if those of you that have the Sefer, Perek Yud Gimel, what's the midah of Yesod, of foundation, all about? Ichud HaTorah ve'Hamada. When Torah Umada don't just find a way to, that it works. It could work together. Rather, Ichud. That means
Unification.
unification of it. That's Yesod. So Hod, we should be blessed. But the midah of Yesod, it wasn't, you know, I just want to remind you, we were speaking about how one of the things about Hod was a healthy Jewish immune system. That when things start working naturally, so the body rejects poison. When we're acting naturally in our natural state of being, we would never, ever, ever, ever allow certain realities that exist still today to be in this country. It wouldn't be. But that's because the immune system has been down from the Yesod. If it was healthy, well, you know, Be'ez Hashem, our children or our grandchildren, great-grandchildren will look at us and be like, were you insane? Were you guys actually insane? What the heck were you thinking? It'll be so clear. It'll be so clear, just like today. You wouldn't stick your hand voluntarily in a beehive because someone explained to you that actually looks righteous in the eyes of the nation. It'll be that level of insanity. It'll be that level of sanity versus insanity. A healthy immune system. We should be privileged that it shouldn't be our great-grandchildren. Us, now, weiter. The gates are open for shifts and change. To come to Hashem with bittul and begging Hashem, please let us show up, finally. Let us just show up and be here for real. And mamish keep on making aliyah more than ever. Yasher koyach.